People want, if only they knew that's what was happening, they would be looking for better options and should be looking for better options.
Destination Donegal.
We still had these boxes coming in from lorries with France, Morocco, Israel and all these other countries, and we thought, right, there's something wrong here.
And looking back on a lifetime in farming.
I could never say I came home hungry. I came home cold, all right, but I didn't ever come home hungry.
New York, the Big Apple, a mecca for migrants and a metropolis for America. It's also home to the hamburger, so what chance has Irish beef of getting a foothold in this massive market?
For the first time in nearly 2 decades, America has lifted its ban on Irish beef imports, imposed at the time of the BSE crisis. The US is the biggest consumer of beef in the world, so the Irish beef industry has been on a big promotional drive to get a slice of the action.
We have been working for the last 2.5 years, both from a science and food safety and political perspective, to try and get Irish beef back into the US market. This is about a niche segment within the US market, where consumers are looking for more natural, grass-fed beef, where they know where it comes from, its traceability, they like the fact that it's produced on family farms. That is the fastest growing segment within the beef market here, growing at about 20% a year at the moment. That's the market we're targeting.
America is the world's biggest beef producer, but its cattle herd has been decimated by drought in the past few years. I took a trip out west to meet Trent Lewis, a rancher in the plains of Nebraska.
Right here in the Great Plains of America, we had 2 severe years of drought. Personally, we have 1/3 of the cows that we had prior to the drought, and everyone's trying to figure out how to keep back replacement females and build our beef breeding herd back to levels that we should have for the infrastructure of beef production.
How much of an impact has it had on price?
Huge impact on price. We personally sold calves the last week of October last fall, and our per animal price was $1,540 per head. That's twice what it was in normal years, significantly more than what it has been the past few years since we saw the first implications of drought. So we're seeing unprecedented prices right now. And that comes with a degree of a caution, because we know as long as we have these high prices, there's a couple of things that come into play. How long can the consumer continue to afford to buy the beef that we're producing at the price that it's commanding today? We do not want beef, the commodity beef, to become a luxury item that only the affluent can afford it.
Calves from ranches like Trent's are sold on to large-scale feedlots where they're finished into beef. We drove further west to Broken Bow, where Adams Land and Cattle Company runs one of the largest feedlots in the world. Here, 85,000 cattle are kept on just 300 acres. They're fed a high-energy diet including hormones and routine antibiotics to maximise growth. The industrial scale of the operation was mind-boggling. For example, there was 17 miles of feed troughs.
There's no other country in the world that produces beef on the sheer scale that the US does, and that feedlots with tens of thousands of cattle is a surefire way of ensuring that it's produced as cheaply as possible. But recently, consumers have started to look for something a little bit different.
Those are short ribs.
Manhattan butcher Jake Dixon sources grass-fed beef from family farms in the New York area. He believes that consumers are turning away from beef out of feedlot mega farms.
Our customer base, I would say, is largely higher income because of the cost of our product. Our products are expensive. I have all the way up to what we call our extra dry ribeye, so 40 to 90 days dry age. That might be $39 a pound, but our ground beef is still quite reasonable. I think that the industrial system in the U.S., or the agricultural system in the U.S., is so far from what people want. If only they knew that's what was happening, they would be looking for better options and should be looking for better options.
Right now, everybody wants a piece of the US beef market because the dollar is strong and prices are at record highs. But like all things in life, what goes up must come down. So, how long will the good times last?
U.S. cattlemen are pretty resilient, given Mother Nature's cooperation, and when grass comes back, the cow numbers will come back. The challenge in the beef business is you can plant a seed of corn and you have it in 1 year. The time lapse from keeping a heifer back until she becomes a productive cow is 3 years, and then you've got another 2 years until that calf is on the market. So we're really talking about an extended time period, and when we decided we're going to start retaining heifers, it's going to be another 3 to 4 years until that actually comes into play. But history says that all U.S. farm commodities are cyclical and that they ebb and flow, and when there are high prices, we increase numbers.
Ireland's largest beef producer, ABP, has signed a deal with Sysco, a key food distributor in the US, to supply Irish beef to restaurants there.
Over the last 2-3 years, there's been a significant shift towards grass-fed beef. The consumer wants product that's more natural, more wholesome, product that comes from family farms as opposed to factory feedlots. Product that's coming from a grass-based environment is one that ticks all of the boxes. And there aren't that many territories in the world that can provide that. The US doesn't have enough, and at the moment it's buying in from countries like Australia and Uruguay. Our estimate of our contract with Sysco is in the order of 10 to 20 million euros per year. That's where we think it's going to be. But very hard to judge, Dara. So start off small, do a very good job, and try and grow it from there.
In top-end establishments like this 2-star Michelin restaurant just off Central Park, steaks can sell for up to $100 each, provided they're hormone-free and grass-fed. That's exactly the type of market that Irish beef exporters want to target for their US debut.
Irish beef has a very clean flavour. It's almost, you would almost describe it as being an elegant flavour. And you know, it's slightly lighter in colour than we see with the American beef, and that also transfers in the flavour that you get on the palate. A small and very rapidly growing section of the consumer is beginning to realise that maybe this feedlot cheap beef isn't really the right way to go, and the negative effects of it are not worth the savings in the end. Sure, it is a small part of the market, but there are 300 million consumers in America, so a small part of that market is millions of consumers.
In terms of conventional beef, US consumers are becoming more aware, and they just want more choice. Now, at the end of the day, for some people, US conventional beef is a great product. It's a very flavorful product, and there are times that they will choose that, but there's other times that maybe they might want something a little different, and the Irish product and Irish beef is a different offer.
Whether Irish beef can carve out a niche in the United States, or whether it will simply fill a temporary gap in the commodity market, remains to be seen. But long term, it's hard to see Irish beef producers taking on their American counterparts on price alone.
The advantage of opening a big market like the US is that it helps to spread the risk for us into another premium market that allows us to get a premium price.
Join us after the break when Ella will be in Donegal for a taste of local produce.
It's as good as I've seen it anywhere, you know, so I mean, you'd be a madman not to turn your back on it, you know.
And Helen meets a man with a lifetime in farming.
And were you well paid for it?
Sure, the going at the time it was 15 shillings annual food. A good man would be about 25 shillings a week.
Unlikely scene for the story we're going to tell tonight, and it's a story about a man who saw an opportunity a few years ago. It's a story that has led to farmers and food producers in this part of beautiful Donegal being supported and helped along the way.
13 years ago, Donald Doherty, who was working as an accountant in London, returned home to his family's restaurant in Bridgend, Donegal. The business wasn't doing well. Donald realised it needed to offer something different, so he decided to buy produce directly from local Inishowen farmers.
The first thing I specialised in was getting local farmers and their meats onto the menu, but dry aging them ourselves in our hanging rooms. We're going to serve the best steak. We're going to make it worthwhile driving here for a steak. And then I realised we're going to have to add more to this. Adding the fish straight off Greencastle boats and the gurnard and the megrim and the fish not on other menus And then all of a sudden, we got this whole new customer segment coming from 30 miles away, 40 miles away, coming more often because suddenly we were giving them something that other people didn't give them.
Restaurants buying local food isn't new in Ireland, of course, but what's clear up here in Donegal is a really interesting model where the restaurant owner is standing side by side and shoulder to shoulder with the farmer and giving them confidence to keep going even through the difficult times.
John Hamilton used to be a stonemason, but 6 years ago he returned to his family farm. He now raises cattle, sheep and free-range pigs on the farm near St Johnson on the border between Donegal and Derry.
Decided I'll have it born on the farm, raised on the farm, butchered and sold right to the customer and cut out all the middlemen.
And is that working out for you financially?
Well, I have spent so much money building this thing up this last 5 years, and we're getting there. We feed the children, we still have the house, so we're...
So the answer is yes.
Yeah.
A few miles from John's farm is another supplier to Donald's restaurant. In a converted stable, Kamal Scarpello and his wife produce cakes and sourdough breads.
The thing that surprises me, I suppose, is that not a loaf of traditional Irish soda bread in sight. I mean, what you're making here is, it's not unusual, but it's reasonably unusual.
Yeah, it's pretty unusual for this part of the world, I suppose. We were the first to start to make this type of long fermented bread. It's not that we don't like making a traditional Irish loaf, it's just that we prefer to specialise in sourdough rather than the soda bread.
So where the cattle used to live, now you're producing loaf upon loaf of sourdough?
Yeah, there used to be sheep in here, there used to be horses in here. Now it's a wood-fired bakery. It's an interesting transition.
More money in bread than sheep, anyway.
Well, I don't know about that now.
Donald's first goal was to buy local meat and fish. His next step was to create a walled garden in nearby Burt. This provides fresh vegetables, herbs and salads for his kitchen.
We had this wonderful produce and suddenly we still had these boxes coming in from lorries with France, Morocco, Israel and all these other countries, and we thought, right, there's something wrong here. And here, about 1.5 acres, with extra land outside the garden, we produce now 150 varieties of our own vegetables all year round.
But obviously the countries that you mention, I mean, what they all have in common is the sun.
Yeah.
Which, you sometimes get in Donegal, but not much of it. I mean, do things grow well here? Enough for the restaurant?
Some things actually grow spectacularly well here, and 12 months of the year, believe it or not. Now, obviously, it's easy to grow in summer, and especially with the aid of these polytunnels where we can get our tomatoes and we can get our exotics and we can get the things that people want. But even in wintertime, we can be harvesting artichokes, we can be harvesting turnips, we have dried our onions.
Does it make financial sense?
It's expensive. It's not the cheapest way of doing things, but I don't think any way we do our business is the cheapest way of doing things, and that's why we're different. And probably if we're asking people to come that extra mile to Donegal, I think we have to deliver the extra mile to them.
Donald soon realised that he had more vegetables than he needed. So in 2012, he set up a market outside his restaurant. Every Saturday, he's joined by local farmers and producers who sell directly to the public.
So I'm so excited. It's not often that you have come across real animals at farmers markets, but come here with me. My favourite animal in the world, Dexter cattle. And I'm joined by local farmer Sam Gill. Now Sam, you have 200 of these at home, don't you?
200 of them at home, yeah.
Where's home?
That's down Kerrykiel. It's about a 40-minute drive from here, but we come here every Saturday to Donald's Market.
So sales are going well?
Sales are going very well. We're selling roughly about half an animal per week here at this market alone.
Now, a lot of our customers are not vegetarian, just I like to put that in.
You're not vegetarian either.
So they go from you over to the Dexter?
Yep, that happens quite a bit, yep.
As long as they're paying, you don't mind?
Well, we do a sausage roll with no meat in it, and then they go there and buy the meat, so it's...
Donald has relentlessly promoted the farmers and fishermen of Inishowen who are part of his market and menu. He's won awards and astonishing reviews from critics and customers both near and far. He recently opened a second restaurant, Harry's Shack, in Portstewart along the Derry coast, and he's attracted top chef Derek Cray to work with him.
The produce and the gardens and the fish and the meat is as good as I've seen it anywhere, so I mean you'd be a madman not to turn your back on it,
He's Donegal born, and yet he's worked with Hess and Blumenthal, Michelin star restaurants throughout the UK. He's singularly one of the best chefs I've ever come across. And he's here because of the food model that I've built up. That is why he's here in, let's face it, an unfashionable village. an unpicturesque village in Donegal. I mean, we're surrounded by petrol stations and a busy road.
What Donal and Harry's have done here, and what he's doing now in his business in Northern Ireland as well, is an example of what small businesses can do by knowing what's happening in the market and working with people in the market to ensure that you're providing a service or a product that people want. So when they see something on a plate, somebody can say, that fish was landed in Greencastle this morning, that potato was only dug a week ago, right, in Milford or wherever. That adds to the authenticity of what's on the plate. If you can do that, I think people will buy it because that's what people want. People want a real experience, or they want a real product.
We have to live up to the challenge of this is our home and this is my dad's restaurant, and we're going to make this work, however difficult that it is. And that's why we put so many years' work into it. People who take control of their own destiny, and as much as I've taken control of the destiny of the restaurant, the farmers, they've taken their own destiny into their own hands. Are any of them making a fortune? No, they're not. But I can tell you that we can make enough to sustain our lifestyles and live in a part of the world that we love and do something in our daily lives that we love.
Farming today is all about speed and efficiency and getting as much out of your land and animals as possible. The work of the farm labour has been replaced by technology and machinery. Now, it wasn't always like that. Farms were busy places with lots of people working on them. I'm here in County Tipperary to meet one remarkable man who started work as a farm labourer way back in the 1940s, and he's still doing it today. Sean Carroll lives here in Balnahow, about 4 miles from Thurles. He was one of 5 children.
I was born in this house in 16th July 1935.
So what age does that make you now?
I'll be 80 the 16th July this year.
And have you lived in this house all your life?
All my life.
Did you ever feel a desire to leave, to go anywhere?
No, never.
Why?
Well, I was attached to this place and I was born in it, I'll die in it.
Sean's father worked for the council. His mother was keen to see her children finish their education, but Sean had his own ideas. And when he went to work on a local farm, Finn's of Balnahow Castle, his path in life was set.
I went down to Finn's working for the holidays and I didn't come back. You were doing a kind of a man's work, but you weren't doing the heavy work. You were filling a gap.
And were you well paid for it?
The going at the time it was 15 shillings and your food. A good man would be about 25 shillings a week. My father wanted me to go on the council, but I wouldn't go because there were no tractors on the council.
You loved the machinery,
did you? Loved the machinery.
So I suppose what 14-year-old boy wouldn't?
Yeah, well, and I was able to drive at 9 years of age. You get up in the morning, you turn in the cows and you'd milk them. You'd have your breakfast, you go to the creamery, you come back, wash the churns, feed the calves, and into your dinner and tip around the things, odd jobs, and you'd be sent up to see the cattle maybe.
And how many cows were you milking?
I think there were 16, at that time.
And how were they milked?
Milked by hand, bucket in between the legs and you...
Twice a day?
Twice a day.
How did you get the milk to the creamery?
Oh, a pony and car.
And were you driving the pony and cart as well as the tractor?
The pony, he'd go and flip. He was used to it.
Like many farm labourers, Sean took on extra work. At 16, he started with a local contractor, John Stakelham, pulling beet. And the money was better?
The money was a little better. The second year, not the first year.
How were you treated by the people you worked with?
Great. Great. I could never say I came home hungry. I came home cold, all right, but I didn't ever come home hungry. Oh, you get your dinner. That time your potatoes were thrown out in the big pot of mountain on the table, and you couldn't be hungry. So. You were getting everything that you were eating came off the land. Tea was very scarce. The ration books were out. The stuff is so weak it won't come through the spout. No more constipation. Oh Lord, I'm near dead with a half ounce of tea and the loaf of brown bread.
What did you do for entertainment?
When I was at Finn's, you go to the road gate there. We played skittles there and pitch and toss. And But when I was John Stakelum, there was very little entertainment because you were working long hours.
Even though Finn's farm was only a stone's throw away, Sean, like most of the other labourers, lived in.
This is the way you came over to work?
I come in the back gate.
And what would we have seen here?
You'd have a pig house, a cow house, a boiler house, and a house they used to keep meal in. There was a barn there, that's gone. There was a stable there, that's gone. It's all new now.
And you weren't the only worker living in the house, were you, Sean?
No, there was anybody who worked here. Most of them stayed here.
And it's funny, your house 3 fields over.
3 feet.
And here you are in here.
But he wouldn't get me down in time in the morning.
You liked the bed, did you, Sean?
Oh, I liked the bed.
Jim Finn was only a toddler when Sean started working here for his father, Paddy.
Were there always farm labourers?
There was. In Sean's time, there would be 2 other men besides my father, so there was 3 adults, and Sean was the creamery boy, as what we used to call him.
Yes.
But I'm quite sure if you worked for my father, he had to be good, because my father was a man who was very, very particular about whoever worked here.
During Jim's time running the farm, the age of the farm labourer pretty much came to an end.
The agricultural contractor was beginning to come on stream at that particular stage. So for a lot of the heavy work, we just brought in agricultural contractors, i.e. silage, maybe ploughing. I used to plough originally myself, and then the agricultural contractors did all the ploughing.
As machinery took over on farms all over the country, Sean got a job with the council like his father before him. He retired almost 14 years ago, but he still keeps his hand in, helping out the neighbours.
I worked till I was 66.
Do you miss it?
I did. I missed the company. At that time you had people coming into you, but there's no one to come in now. Be here nights and there's no one to come in.
And you never married?
No.
Why did you never marry?
Because my mother was in bad health here and looking after things here, and then she died. My father was here and I stayed with him. I was 34 years of age then, and the old devilment was gone out of my head at that stage.
What do you enjoy doing now?
But sit down at that there and I have a good fire in it, and have an old book there. I have an old.
Do you watch television?
No, I'm not bothered with television at all.
You've no television in the house?
No, nothing inside the door.
Why?
No, don't knock on it. I'm an old timer. I'm born that way, and I'm going to die that way.
Next week on Ear to the Ground, Into the Deep with the Boyne Fishermen's Rescue Service.
Next thing he said, right, we're on a search, put on a dry suit there. So I'm the only person within the whole organisation that actually didn't voluntarily join.
Rose Veal, a taste of the future.
He's still a calf, you know. He still sucks my finger like I pull the hand off you. He'd take the clothes off you, they'd pull everything.
And Faraway Fields, a little piece of Ireland across the ocean.
My family left Ireland in the 1860s and established a farm there, doing the same things as these people.
Don't forget this programme will be repeated on Sunday at lunchtime after the farming weather. You can contact us by phone, email or follow us on Facebook or Twitter. And you can hear more rural stories on Countrywide with Damien O'Reilly on Saturday morning on RTE Radio 1.
Operation Transformation concludes this week, and after the leaders wash off the mud from their 5k runs, you can see them in all their finery as they strut down the catwalk. That's Wednesday and Thursday at 8:30, but next it's over to the newsroom.